Hi, this is Jim Phelan. As I say to my students, I've been teaching in the English department here. I'm in my 5th decade. So I started in the late 1970s, and so that, if you count, that gets me into my 5th decade. Most of my work is in narrative and narrative theory, also in critical theory in 20th century and 21st century British and American literature. I edit a journal called Narrative and a book series co-edit with Robin Warhol and Peter Rabinowitz at Hamilton College on the theory and interpretation of narrative. So you might say that I'm doing narrative 24/7. I don't think there is one book all English majors should read. I think that one of the sort of consequences of the canon wars and the proliferation of areas of study in English is the sort of lesson that there are multiple canons and there are multiple values behind our estimation of particular books and elevation of them to particular places in the canon. So I could talk about favorite books. I think I'm always happy to talk about Jane Austen and George Eliot and Henry James and Faulkner and Ian McEwan and lots of others, Toni Morrison. But I think it's better to sort of take a Catholic view and say, there's multiple great books, and find the ones that you as an English major are going to respond to strongly. I think it depends on the sort of classroom situation, but I'd say in our common teaching of a 40-person course, the most challenging thing is sort of motivating the students to do more than sit and listen. I think students are generally interested, our students are really quite good, but in a class that size, I think lots of students find it much more comfortable to sit back. And for professors like me who like to have a lot of interaction with students, you'll get this dynamic where 5 or 6 will be active participants and 30 or so will be happy to sit back and watch. And it seems to me that ends up kind of shortchanging the potential, or the potential of the course and the classroom as a learning environment isn't fully realized in that. So finding ways to get people to want to be active, it seems to me that, for me right now, the current biggest challenge. I think it's really just my own sense that there was something pleasurable and valuable in the experience of reading, and particularly the experience of reading fiction. And so much of my work has sort of developed in an effort to try to understand why it was engaging, why it was powerful, what were the sources behind that. And so all my sort of move into narrative theory has really been, in a way, driven by a desire to answer that question, what's behind the life I live as a reader. Yeah, there's probably a decent chance that I'd be a high school basketball coach. I played basketball pretty seriously. I played in high school, I played in college. When I went to graduate school, when I was an undergraduate, I thought, well, it'll be great to go to graduate school and I won't have all this practice and travel and everything. And then when I got to graduate school, I was like, no, I want to be playing basketball. And I think there's something just very appealing to me about sort of the physical aspects of the game and the improvisational aspects of the game within a certain kind of structure. And I think, I was drawn to all that, and I think to become a coach would be to become a teacher of another kind, and I could see myself doing that. Right. I think it depends. If I'm writing, 20 pages of something where I'm really engaged and I'm really trying to work out a problem, and then that's really very, very satisfying. It's very difficult. I tell my students, particularly graduate students, that writing is still the hardest thing for me to do. But in some ways, it's also the most rewarding. When I get to a certain stage in the writing process. On the other hand, it seems a little presumptuous and egotistical to say, well, my 20 pages is better. Spend my time writing those 20 pages would be better than spending, the time it takes to read 500 pages of Faulkner or Virginia Woolf or one of the greats. And so in that regard, I guess I would say it depends. Yeah, I don't think there's any place that I'd say I'd never go back to that I've been. There's certainly some places that I'd be more eager to go back to. I'd love to go back to Paris, at the drop of a hat. But I've been to, lots of places: South Africa, China, Scandinavia, and I found them all, fascinating and worth returning to. So, I guess in that regard, I've been lucky. I haven't had a trip that says, okay, this is a disaster. I never want to come back here. Well, I think I want to say the faculty, but then I think it's sort of the faculty in connection with students, right? I mean, the ability for faculty and students to connect with each other, it seems to me to be the heart of the university. And when that happens, I think the university is a very special place. And I think when faculty and students connect over intellectual ideas, and particularly over questions, right? Something we don't know, but we want to know, and we feel like if we did know, we would be contributing something to the store of knowledge, to the way we live our lives, and I think this happens at OSU, and I think it's happened sort of maybe more often, more frequently now than it did when I first got here, so in that way, the more that happens, the more we have a right, I think, to claim that OSU is one of the great universities in the world.